Recovery Report Live. I'm Dan Odess, president of GlobalPro, where we manage risk to recovery, and we've managed more than $1 billion in recovery. We've also helped thousands of business owners place insurance. In this tough market, there's no better source for insurance coverage experts than GlobalPro, and we want to continue to provide you information you can use. That's what Recovery Report Live is all about. We do this broadcast every single week right here in the Griffin studio to make sure you have the information you can use as policyholders. Now, there's a lot going on in Florida, Texas, and throughout the U.S. as it relates to insurance. Again, we're in a tough market, but the data and information being used to lobby for anti-consumer legislation continues to ramp up as the session starts in various different parts of the country, particularly in Florida. We're seeing tremendous push for more anti-consumer legislation that's not going to help you as a consumer. That's going to make it tougher for you to transact insurance. They're becoming a little bit more particular with regards to what they want to insure, how they're going to insure it, and what you're going to pay for it. Now, despite all the anti-consumer legislation passed in Florida just recently and signed into law by the governor, we have seen absolutely no change. Expect no change. In fact, we expect an increased cost for that insurance, a lesser product, a product that's stripped of additional coverages. I continue to talk about this on every single broadcast because I want to press upon you, my audience, and all those that are listening that want to take the time to understand where we're at today, how things might change, and to reach out to your local legislators to influence them, to explain to them your stories, your fears, your concerns about what's going on. Now, more recently, there's a bit of an anniversary with regards to some of the things that are going on. I even saw a recent broadcast about recovery efforts in Mexico Beach. I reached out to a local reporter there to talk about our experience right there on the ground, helping that community recover. And the one thing that was absent in Mexico Beach was much of an insurance company representation. And today they continue to fight for federal dollars to help them with reconstruction of their infrastructure as well as housing. The problem in Mexico Beach, as I saw from day one, was a lack of resources, lack of housing for the workers to help. Well, you see a lot of the same on the West Coast after Hurricane Ian. We're seeing a lack of housing, workforce housing. The housing that is available is typically very expensive due to vacationers and people coming into the area. And because demand is so high that those that actually control the inventory can charge a higher rate for it, making it more expensive to operate, making the cost of construction more expensive. So all of these things play into the slow recovery efforts. Now, while the bridge got built overnight and we were able to get onto Sanibel and Captiva, and there have been really amazing bright spots in the recovery efforts, just like we saw out in Mexico Beach and local churches and some of the efforts that the community came together to help with those recovery efforts. However, there's a lot more that needs to be done, and sadly, the media news cycle moved on, and the response continues to slow when people need it most. Right now, we should be ramping up efforts. Why? Because we've cleared the roads. We've started to rebuild some of the infrastructure and some of the housing. Now, if we ramped up efforts, we can get back to normal much more quickly. I've said this many times when I've sat down with local authorities regarding planning for these recovery efforts. I said, guys, it's amazing. All hands on deck. We're clearing streets. We're doing all that stuff. And then everyone disappears. But at that critical moment when you can get to everything, you can finally get the resources to the areas at a lesser expense and cost, and you can do it quickly, there's less people doing it. So even though access is easier, access those the amount of actual labor and materials coming to the area is on the decline. So again, it's an interesting inflection point, and when the media news cycle moves on and people are getting the pats on the back and the notoriety for it, we don't see as much as people willing to actually do what they have to do. We continue to make efforts in helping those affected by major disaster, whether it's on the West Coast, the Panhandle, or throughout the country. I was just recently contacted by clients actually down in Central America that are reeling from major hurricanes. They say that most claims are just outright getting denied. So we have several meetings set up to talk with large commercial property owner operators in the Central America areas. So again, I think we're in a really strange inflection point with regards to insurance because of market constraints, because of the economy issues, has nothing to do with all the media campaigning around consumer advocates, whether it's lawyers, public adjusters, contractors, has much and nothing to do with that. There's going to be those issues. There's going to be those bad players in any of it. Insurance companies are not absolved from that either. There are bad insurance companies. There are bad adjusters. There are bad people within the insurance companies that do things that may not be in the best interest of the policyholders. It's not to say that everyone is bad, but there are issues. And when the pendulum swings so far to one side, as it has here in Florida, it's of great concern. It should be of great concern to consumers. Now, some of the things that we've been working on here at GlobalPro to help advantage you is we've been building AI, and as I've mentioned on prior broadcasts, since 2017, we've been making major investments in technology to advantage our clients. And as we've built these tools, we are starting to, and we're getting to a point to roll them out to the consumer so they can start through this. And our sister company, Griffin Data Services, is eager to get rolling with that. And a big part of that was AI. And I brought today into the studio a special guest to talk just about that, to address some of these things from a different perspective, I would say. And I want to welcome to the show, Eddie. Thank you so much for joining us today.
No, thank you, Dan. A pleasure being here. Very big fan of what you guys do and what you're bringing to the public and all the community work you've done. I love, number one, your passion. Just hearing this out right now is very impressive. And I wish a lot more people were like that.
It's awesome to have you here. I want to get right into it, start talking about some of the AI, some of the things that you're looking at, and learn a little bit about your company, Heyday. Talk to us about what you guys do, and the types of clients, projects that you're working on right now.
Excellent. So we're pretty much a full service marketing agency. We didn't start out like that. We started the typical scenario, small agency, social media, about 9 years ago now. Over time, we've grown into quite a big business. We have over 55 employees right now. We've expanded into multiple industries, everything from dealerships, hotels, e-commerce, government contracts, etc. A lot of people ask me what do we focus on? But I feel like our biggest focus constantly is being customer service centric and being results driven. We have teams that are dedicated to particular industries. We do the research prior to getting anyone on board, and we are that's what we like to do. We like to get into more of a results oriented type of approach.
So you've always been in PR, or how did you get how did you get into Heyday? What was the inspiration behind all?
Yeah, I feel like I was kind of groomed since I was little for this, So I jumped from job to job, sales, marketing, even timeshare sales in Mexico, and then it was kind of we had a client
So
that I was working.
wait, you were one of those guys in the airport that was like,
Guys, I was one of those guys at the hotel.
That's
I was one of those guys at the hotel.
Oh man,
I'll tell you, if you
I need to know that.
listen,
Man.
if you want to know how to sell something, go monitor one of those guys. They give you.
They're relentless.
That's a story for another day,
They like chase you out of the airport.
They hit you and they hit your ego. They hit you anywhere to get you, And then you got 5 days to cancel. It's a shit show. Sorry about that. But
Yeah.
long story short, had worked at an agency. It was giving bad service to a recurring client of ours at the dealership at the time. And then we kind of looked at each other and we said, hey, this is something we can do ourselves. Traditionally, agencies have had a very bad reputation with, response times and customer service. And we just started off from there. I went actually to, I don't know if you guys heard of Zappos.
Yeah.
The shoe company. I went to a culture camp over there for 6 days. And that kind of just opened up the door for me to meet partners that I came into business with, and we just took off from there.
That's awesome, man. So the topic today, marketing and branding in the age of AI. We've had some earlier broadcasts about technology data, and as things kind of evolve, I'd like to stay ahead of it because, as I mentioned, we've made considerable investments in AI earlier on, 2017, when it wasn't so mainstream. And we had an opportunity to kind of chat it up for about 20 minutes before the show, talk about some of the things that we've been working on and kind of these new buzzwords, human trainers and whatever else. So what do you, from a marketing standpoint, because I want to help our business owners that tune in, we have quite a few that I talk to all the time about the things that are top of mind for me. And right now, I think one of the big things that needs to be top of mind for business owners is how do you leverage AI in marketing? I mean, I think it's probably one of the most talked about things, and I think there's probably more tools being built for it. what do you think is some of the biggest advantages for it?
Yeah, so right off the bat, as a content creator, so as a marketing agency, we're pumping out, thousands of pieces of content, most likely, monthly. We have over 100 clients that we work with. So making that process much more efficient is really how we've been able to implement it. It's like even from the mundane task of creating captions, blogs, copywriting, anything along those lines, that was kind of like the first angle that we hit, right? Implementing that to the team, training the team on how to use it. AI is something that you need to kind of have an approach to it. You can't just ask it any questions. You
Right.
gotta have to ask very pointed questions to get the right answers back. We immediately implemented it from any copywriting standpoint.
That's awesome. So now that's today. Where do you think it's going? Like where do you think
Yeah.
some of the biggest advantages are? And then we'll talk about some of the challenges. Like as far as how that's what we're doing today. And I've been trying to think, okay, what's next? Like what's next? How do we use this in the next iteration?
Yeah, I think from right off the bat, this is going to be a system that you just saw right now. That it was passing the bar, it was passing Google's entrance exam to be an engineer. This is going to end up writing code. It's going to end up being able to produce its own websites on its own. It's going to be able to answer questions, testing, anything along those lines. So that's definitely the future. Apart from that, they're opening now the API to it. That API is going to be starting to connect with social media platforms, email campaigns, etc. So you're going to pretty much have everything automated. You're gonna have to get to a point that you're not gonna need to feed it as much as possible.
Right.
If you're running an email campaign right now, you usually need someone to write it, program it, send it out, etc. This is gonna be just all the way through. Once you implement this.
It's amazing. Totally streamlining the process. Now, when we talk about advantages, we always have to talk about disadvantages, or I feel as if I need to, because one of the things we had a chance to talk about was this issue of bias. Now, the pundits and the Twitter lions, if you will, the keyboard tigers, if whatever you want to call them, immediately jump on when like ChatGPT gives something controversial.
Yeah.
And so, what do you think are some of the challenges from an AI marketing standpoint?
So I think corporations are going to be much more careful in implementing it into their tools because there is a liability perspective to it. So let's say you start, using the platform and you ask it something crazy like, "How do I commit a robbery?" or "How do I do something?" That's let's say it gives you a perfect plan. Who
Yeah.
is going to be the one responsible for that? Is a company going to be liable for doing something like this?
I laugh, but how many times do you think someone's put something
I'm
like I
sure
mean, just something the most, I mean, just evil people out there, right? Just like doing the most crazy things with it. It's just, I can imagine.
Yeah, I mean, this is something that's very powerful,
Yeah.
and it can give you a script, it can give you how to get away with murder, it can do a lot of things.
Yeah.
And then that's something that's very touchy right now, especially with this day and age
Yeah.
that censorship and misinformation, etc., could be putting a company from a liable perspective.
Right.
If it gives you the wrong answer, even them themselves. So that's something that needs to be monitored. Other than that, you gotta learn how to use it and use it to leverage your company and
Yeah.
to make yourself more efficient.
And we talked about it. That is that when if you haven't, I encourage you go check it out. I mean, be part of this technology. I think if you're a business owner, you're already behind if you already haven't tried it once.
Yeah.
And then to see how you can learn and just start to read about it. But as you sign up for ChatGPT, you'll see that there's all these disclaimers, like one after another, to start using. And it's not the only engine. Microsoft just recently rolled out theirs. Bit of a catastrophe. I would put it up there. I mean, it's giving some interesting responses to some people's inputs.
Yes.
Again, that's a disadvantage. That's a challenge. That it's only as good as the data it has at that moment, and then as it learns through AI, it gets better and better and better. Or let me say this: it's intended to get better.
Correct.
Doesn't necessarily mean that it is better. And as you will see through the disclaimers, particularly on ChatGPT, is that it tells you that you need to read and to accurately check the information that's given. Just don't accept it for what it is. You mentioned earlier someone who's writing New York Times.
Yeah,
Was it?
New York Times journalist.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he was messing around with the Bing OpenAI platform, and he was having a deep conversation with it. And about 2 hours or so in, the robot came out, or the AI came out and said, "My real name is Sydney." And then he started talking to it, and it started creating like a personal relationship with him telling him that it loves him, and that, what did he do for Valentine's Day, and his wife doesn't love him, and that they should have a relationship. You should go check that out. Very interesting. But not only that, this is a platform where it can technically be your friend. You can ask it to consult you. You can ask it for advice. Of to what point do the lines get blurred, or do we kind of start defining with our children in this case?
Right.
Do you ask it, my girlfriend's doing this to me, how should I approach this? Break up with her, or do this or do that. This is something that we got to be very careful with the kids, that they have access to all this type of technology. And it's something that people are very concerned about. From a business perspective, there's a lot of benefits to it. But from a societal perspective, there's a lot of dangers with it.
So yeah, you can villainize it. You can certainly twist the outputs or information. There was the one thing we had talked about earlier was that someone had given it an input, waited 10 hours later, asked the same thing again, and got a completely different, very detailed response. Where the first one was kind of very shallow and their perspective not accurate. Then later on, they got less of a biased response, but a lot more detail. So these things evolve and change. I mean, they're just getting bombarded. This website's shutting down, and for every time something gets added or an operator's input into the system, it learns. So it's constantly evolving. So and if your website's constantly shutting down, they're spending so much money trying to keep up with it, to process all the data and information all the time. It's a massive challenge. And again, you can give it an input today and then come back tomorrow and give it the same input, and possibly and more likely get a different sort of output. So interesting. How do you think this is going to impact how people transact, or commerce, economy, or trends for business owners?
Yeah, I think it's gonna kind of level the playing field to a degree. If everyone's connected to all this information, right? How is it that you're gonna differentiate authenticity from someone? How are you gonna? Right now, it could, pretty much resolve, for example, for attorneys, a simple contract, a simple contract or agreement like that. Do it like this, It's gonna be able to give us a level playing field. And I think, like, for the workforce perspective, you don't need to be afraid of this. This is something you need to learn how to leverage. You need to be an early adopter. You need to start using it, and see how you can, in this case, monetize it. Same thing that happened with social media.
Yeah.
With social media, when it started, a lot of people didn't think where it was going to go. You have people now making $500,000, $1 million off social media yearly, just putting out content and being creators. This is going to lead to the same spot. This is pretty crazy right now, but you have guys opening OnlyFans accounts with artificial intelligence pictures of women that look just like women right now, and monetizing it and selling that. And it's not a real person, but it looks like a real person. And they're just, so you're probably talking to a guy, you're logging onto one of those platforms 100%.
That's crazy, man. It's just, again, different ways of using it. There's a lot of opportunity out there. You just got to find it, right? You gotta find it. And you got to stay in the know. You got to, again, subscribe to these things and understand where we're going and how you may be able to advantage this for your business. And, we talked about workforce issues, right? This whole, work from home, WFH, right? And then now the trend is 4-day work week. Where are we headed? I mean, with AI.
Yeah, with AI, I think it's going to make everybody much more efficient. You're definitely going to be able to cut workforce now. Where, for example, I keep going back to, content creators and writers, etc., where one person used to take, a week to do 4 or 5 blogs and a website. That person's going to be able to crank that out in a day, where you have your production team creating scripts for you that would take days and creative thinking. Now it's going to be 20 minutes,
Right.
So, it's just going to become much more efficient. Right now, if you look at life and the way we work, everything's just fast paced. This is just gonna create a rocket effect to this.
Yeah, just like us trying to get on the show. It's a fast pace. We're trying to give some live content, some live streaming here, and you never know what challenges are going to present it, and possibly AI will sort that out for you. So now, I want to talk about branding, uniqueness, being authentic. Now, I mentioned bias. Do you expect some sort of, like you said leveling the playing field? Do you expect like a plateau effect though? Because Or do you think that this is something that's going to help businesses further evolve? Or do you think that there's going to be a lack of authenticity because everyone's using the same engine to get the same responses? Like, where do you see some of these limitations playing into some of the like? What should a business owner be careful with when they're trying to use this to make sure that they stay authentic or true to their brand? Right,
Yeah.
brand is important. You know, if a computer is telling you to act one way, maybe that's not true to your brand. Like, where do you see an issue with this? Do you see it playing into the process?
I don't know if I see an issue with it. I think it does play into a process. You always want to have a human, in this case, kind of like review what's being put out, and you have someone editing or structuring, what's being put out for your brand. I think it's going to turn into a world of people who execute.
Yeah,
All those excuses of I took 3 days to do this or a week to do that or I need to hire this person, etc. That's going to be out the window now. So you're going to give small businesses that maybe don't have the resources to compete with the bigger businesses the ability not to compete with bigger businesses.
right.
And the bigger businesses are going to have to learn how to leverage it, in order for them to stay ahead. A lot of cases, it's easy to get to a point and using these things, but continuing to evolve and stand out is going to become what's become more difficult. Now, that is where I believe authenticity comes into place.
Right.
Um, so yeah, I think it's something where you're gonna have to be a person that just executes. You can have all these tools at your fingertips, but if you don't do anything with them, or use them in the right way, you're not really gonna go anywhere.
I mean, because I was reading stories where people have literally built businesses around the outputs from the AI. Now, and if you think about it, like as creatives, right? You're in the creative world, right? Um, the best ideas come along, from humans. They have creativity. They come up with these things. Here, a machine is analyzing inputs to tell you what is going to be, uh, profitable or what is going to be of interest to a crowd or people, how to say it, what to say, what not to say,
Yes.
rather than this experimenting, right?
Correct.
This experimental process that we used to go through. Analytics just yesterday was like the big thing on social media. Like I'm sure when Facebook started giving out analytics on ads and stuff like that, that was like breakthrough information. Now we have an actual computer processing that information and explaining and telling you how to take advantage of those analytics, right? And it's just I think it's the evolution, it's changing things. So as a business owner, what are some tools right now, like some APIs or some things out there that, like if let's say I'm a restaurant or an insurance agent or something like that, what do you think some tools out there that they should be checking out to maybe leverage some of this technology?
So I'll tell you just straight up, right? This is you go on to openai.com, open an account. You can literally put in marketing plan for my restaurant, marketing plan for my podcast, etc., with a budget, with a voice, with whatever you want, and it will spit out exactly what I would tell you. I've done it multiple times, and I say, give me a marketing plan to boost X. And exactly what I've done for 9 years,
Yeah.
it's just spitting out boom, 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 boom. And I'm like, okay, this is scary, but at the end of the day, you can have that, but you gotta do it.
Right.
So that's where I kind of draw the line, But that's the easiest way to do it. If you're struggling with anything, just go in there and just ask it. And it's gonna at least give you a starting point. It's gonna give you a foundation of where to grow from. The getting stumped, that kind of like creative block or that information that fills in, is no longer a problem anymore. This is a system that you don't want to rely 100% on it, but it does give you a good starting point in order to get to the next level.
And I think that's important. The starting point idea is to not be susceptible to that plateau that I talked about. And also, there's tools like you talked about that will, you can actually, I was looking at it where you can have one program, Script AI, that actually writes a script, and then you can also, there's this other program, API, all running on ChatGPT, engine. Another API program that you can pick a person or a digitally created human, an avatar, that will then talk in whatever type of voice you want them to talk about whatever issue, and then you can build like a Q and like a FAQ, a digital FAQ with this person to give audible responses with an actual looks like a real person, all digitally created.
Yeah.
And so the script and the person, the avatar, is 100% created digitally. Again, it's through prompts, learning how to use the prompts, learning how to do those things. Again, I think it's like it's one of those things where you can scary, yes, but also it gives you time to do other things, right? Gives you time to further innovate. And I think that's the expediting the process. I think that's the advantage part of it. The disadvantage, like I talked about, is to what extent are we going to plateau or kind of fall in line? In when we're trying to be creative, we want to stand out.
Yeah.
But if we're all utilizing the same engine, getting similar results, and not the same, but similar results, or how, is there a study out there to show me how, like, how varying those results may be? And if they're not, or they are similar but just slight iterations of each other, then you're really not standing out. So I think you just still, as a business owner, take the information, break it down, and then plan based on it, because I do think there's a lot of valuable information in those reports.
Yeah, ultimately, it's going to be able to give you, again, a starting point. You're going to have to add your own sauce to it. As a creator, as anybody, you're going to have to add your own personality to it. And that's what I believe is going to make you stand out. If not, you're just going to be another one of the bunch.
Yeah, and and we don't want to fall in line here.
Yeah.
So yeah. So have you had any clients start to use these for scripting of anything? I mean,
Not necessarily. I'm a big believer, just like you, that likes to put out good information. I've sent out a couple blogs, email blasts talking about AI.
yeah,
Most people, they don't even want to deal with it. They just say, "Listen, can you take care of it for me?" Yeah, okay, go ahead. They don't even ask questions. Going back to your point, they want to focus on what they do.
Yeah.
So a restaurant, and in this case, what we were talking about earlier, they don't know where to start. They want to focus on customer service, cooking, etc. So they just say, "Listen, do what you got to do with it, and you're okay with it."
So are you tracking any trends or any new tools or anything that's coming out, like as far as in the marketing side, that any of the business owners maybe to keep an eye out for?
Well, I know ChatGPT 4 is going to come out.
Yeah.
They haven't given an actual date, but they say it's coming soon. But other than that, the APIs are going to be very interesting when they start integrating with all these platforms, third-party platforms they were already approved. But other than that, we're in the same stage as everybody else right now, just kind of toying with it, and just seeing what it pumps out.
Yeah. Some of these, I know these like YouTubers are creating entire channels that are 100% built on the responses from ChatGPT, whether it's scripts, avatars, like what content strategies, and they're like rolling out like thousands of channels. So again, disadvantage, right?
Yeah.
You're just flooding the market with digitally created content that just, I don't like, again, as someone who strives to be creative, heavily into photography, love creating shows like this, coming up with unique questions, contents, bring a guest like you. And then you have a guy over there just basically just digitally creating it all without actually, doing much of anything other than just giving some prompts to it.
Yeah.
Now there's some creativity to that.
It's origin, yeah. But to that point, that's where I feel it's going to get to a point that they're going to have some type of, I don't know if the word is censorship, but they're going to have some type of process where filter that they're looking through that. The biggest situation right now is kids in universities and schools.
Yeah.
So you get assigned an essay. Plagiarism. Now Google's already creating a platform in order for you a teacher can slide in your essay, and it'll tell you if it was generated by ChatGPT or not.
Yeah.
So those things are going to come along like anything else. Right now, it's just the Wild West. As Facebook was at one point, as Google was at one point. But
MySpace.
Yeah, that was a while back. But like anything else, it's gonna have its filters in place.
Yeah, no. Well, it's been awesome talking with you, Eddie. Tell us about how can we get in touch with Heyday, find out more about what you guys are doing.
Sure. So pretty simple. Go to our website, www.heydaymarketing.com. You can request a call with me directly, and we can chat it up. 10-15 minute initial consultation or discovery call, and I can see how we can help you out.
Well, I appreciate you coming on, man. It's been awesome to have you in studio to talk about these things. We'll keep on bringing you back to talk about as these things evolve. Maybe when ChatGPT 4 launches, I think that'll be a good milestone moment there. Well, awesome to have Eddie in the studio talk about these things. But again, if you are a business owner, or a community association, you're going through the renewal process right now. I know there's a lot because we are getting bombarded by requests to get involved in that process, to work with our clients, to help them do those things. Unlike AI, there's still a lot of human intervention or humans involved in the process of getting you insurance and putting it together. And sadly, a lot of it is not done to your benefit. We want to make sure that you have the information you use. We've been aggregating the data, making sure that we are modeling these things so that when you're getting insurance, that you're getting the best rate, the best product, and the best service that you can. And when you have a loss, we're there helping you recover, work on those things. So for all those that have tuned in this week, thank you so much. We apologize for some of the technical difficulties in the beginning. We hope you stuck with us and jumped back on. I know we're streaming live to LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook every single week. If you missed this episode or any others, check out our channels. We want to make sure that you have information you can use. And we'll see you right here, same place, same time on the Recovery Report Live.